Welcome to Something to Marvel About, a podcast where we discuss and dissect the week's MCU releases. My name's Dave, and joining me 2 minutes early, which actually means he's 15 minutes late, it's my co-host Andrew. What's up, Andrew?
What's up, David?
We are here to talk brand new Marvel series, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. This feels like almost we could have been introduced to this show in What
And
If.
what if, of
Yeah,
course.
and then it branched out to its own storyline.
It's like a what if of what if.
Right? That being said, Andrew, we got to see the first 2 episodes, which are now out on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Spoiler free. What did you think?
To be quick and concise, I was semi-skeptical. The visuals were jarring for a slight second, but I'm glad I watched both and I stuck it out because it actually has a very very good way of feeling like a comic being animated. And some of the fluidity and camera angles in some scenes alone are worth the 2 episodes. And I'm very interested with the story and the variant of this Peter, right? Because he has a very different life, even though it's the same fundamentals. So I really want to see how this goes. They've mixed up enough for it to be like a fresh story of the same old Spider-Man we love, right? But still, there's enough here that's different where I'm like, all right, let's go. I think they portrayed it well. So I actually really enjoyed it, even though I was semi-skeptical in the beginning.
I too was skeptical with the visual art style at first, and I think a lot of us tend to feel jarred when we see an art style that's not traditional, that's trying to be
Yeah,
something new and different. And
yeah,
sometimes people can look at it as it's bad. I'm like, no, it's not bad. It's just different.
yeah.
And I think with this one, the whole point was to go back to the original comic book style of like a comic book artist, Steve Ditko. He's one of
Mm-hmm.
the creators of the Spider-Man character, and he
Yeah.
had a specific art style. And when you
Mm-hmm.
hold this side by side, you can see,
You
okay,
can
because
see
it's
it.
not the case of they are animating comic book panels,
Mm-hmm.
because I think like Into the Spider-Verse movies kind of played with that. This feels more like they're animating classic comic book panels, right? Because the art
Mm-hmm.
style of comic books has changed over the
A
years, right?
lot.
They don't
Yeah.
draw comic books the same way they did in the
No.
60s and 70s. And this feels like you've taken that era of comics when Spider-Man first came out and you animated
Mm-hmm.
it. And like you said, it's not just the animation style, but even the way the animation is animated, right?
Yeah, it's
It's
really
so
good at some
smooth.
points. It's pretty
It's so
fluid.
fluid.
Yeah.
They take full advantage. And I think for me, I agree with you. That's where I'm sold in it. Like, whoa, the swinging and the action is
I'm imagining a fight with someone like the Vulture or Green Goblin,
right.
and yeah, there's
That's
so
going to be
much
phenomenal. It's going to be so
exactly.
good. And that excites me. And I'm also excited, like you said, that the idea that Spider-Man's a character that we've seen in many iterations over the decades. He's
Correct.
one of my favorite characters. I even have a Spider-Man tattoo
Samesies,
somewhere.
really.
And
Ooh,
so it's
whoever can
interesting to
guess
always be
wins nothing.
it's always interesting to kind of see a narrative where I'm like, I don't know where this is going.
Yeah,
Right? I can make educated guesses, but
yeah.
because of the way it's done, they could
Mm,
go left
sorry.
where I thought they were going right.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I like being in a position where I don't know where it's going, but it's familiar enough where I'm like, ooh, I remember that. Ooh, I remember that.
Yeah, I
And so it's
remember
had some cool
that, but
moments.
that's different. Oh, that's changed.
And there's a level of maturity that I wasn't expecting in this. I thought it'd just be like a fun Spider-Man story, but it
Yeah,
seems like they may be going with some deeper nuance. There are moments where
yeah.
it's like social commentary that's happening.
Yeah, out of nowhere, but shout out to them for saying those things and breaching those topics in
Mhm.
a not loud way, but I mean the writings on the wall kind of ways. So it was quite well done.
And they're giving you the threads, and they're gonna
Mm-hmm.
start pulling all those threads throughout the season, which is what
Mm-hmm.
I really like about it. And then there's even moments where you're thinking, "Oh, that's not going to happen till episode 6." And it straight away, these are
Like
happening. It
damn,
doesn't
yeah.
waste any time, right? Narratively, it hits the ground running. It moves at a really good pace. All right, let's go into spoilers.
Yes, yes.
One of the things that this does is where the trajectory changes is when he first goes to school at Midtown High. In the movies, he's at Midtown. That's where he meets his friends. That's where he
His
meets.
usual bunch.
But because the school was destroyed, he has to go to a different school.
Different
He meets
score.
different characters. So
Yep.
let's talk about his origin story to start off with first. We haven't seen the origin story in the MCU yet. We
Yeah.
don't know what his origin story is. This one we do
We're
know,
making guesses, but
right?
yeah.
What do you think of the origin story involving Doctor Strange from an alternate dimension and a symbiote?
Right, a very svelte and fit symbiote, right? It
Right?
definitely works out. That's a newer model. Um, I I guess just because I'm a fan of fantasy and almost anything written well, I thought it flowed well. I don't really have any issues with it. I guess I was wondering where is the spider hanging from? I was trying to do the physics of like where is he coming from? Where did anyways, let's not get
But I
into
think it's a
things that we don't
pertinent question
understand.
because I
Yeah.
think 'cause Doctor Strange says we're not supposed to be
To
here.
be yeah, and he's thoroughly
And
confused. He's like actually shocked.
it seems that either Doctor Strange isn't working in the main in his dimension, I should say. Doctor Strange isn't active or active yet because
Yeah.
Peter recognizes superheroes. Aunt May has a dangling Iron Man in the car, but he's like, Peter's like, "Who's that wizard guy?" He doesn't recognize Doctor Strange. So do you think that's a Doctor Strange from an alternate universe as well?
Yeah, one maybe two. It could be he could be from that universe. He just hasn't encountered Peter, and is aware of that. Because I feel like that would be shocking no matter what, even if it was same multiverse Doctor Strange. But I am going to guess that they're saying um, symbiote, Doctor, and
Spider.
Spider all came from a different dimension, which again I appreciate these comics when they go all in. We know the multiverse is there, things come from anywhere. I mean, it's not I guess I remind myself that okay, I'm not going to quantify, is this more or less believable
Uh,
than
um,
a radioactive spider from a lab? Let me ponder this for a second. My mind's like, okay, this is what we're going with. Great. All right, what else? So yeah, minus the physics of it, I thought it worked well. What I find interesting that the spider then went crawling to go look for its next let's say child. So I'm throwing out the guesses that we're gonna see some more spider kids.
I'm looking at whose white sneakers with a red stripe was that?
Hmm.
'Cause the person grabs the bag
Yeah.
we don't see a face, we don't even see
Mm,
skin, so you can't even tell
yeah.
skin color. I assume it's a
Nothing.
guy, but it could be a girl. We don't know, which I think is
Uh,
interesting too. I think that was done by design because you
of
don't give us
course.
that shot for
Yeah.
nothing, right?
Yeah.
Especially in animation. There is no accidents in animation.
Of
Everything's with
course not.
purpose.
You actually had to do it. So I feel like we're definitely gonna get a snippet of the shoes later and be like, it's you.
What I like about this show, let's talk about the characters in his world, right? Before we get into the
Hmm.
super stuff, the
Yeah.
characters in his world. One, we're given characters that, as far as I know, are not mainstays in Peter Parker's life in the comics and other
Usually,
media.
no.
They're not usually main. In fact, not even one. Usually
Yeah.
you get like one. They switch or tweak it
No.
around. Like in the movies, Flash was changed to from a jock to like a nerd bully. I think this is one of the few times where it's like these characters have never really been friends with
They've
Spider-Man,
had no connection before, in at least like in my average but little
or
viewing of comics.
not connection as we see, because and I won't go into
Hmm.
who's who. Many of
Yeah.
these characters, even the kids that Peter goes to school with in the comics, become villains.
Dum
So
dum
Peter
dum.
interacts with them as villains, not necessarily
Uh,
friends, which I find interesting to where
uh,
it's going, because then if those characters go down the villain path, I think it has a lot more impact because
it
it's personal.
does,
Because I knew
and
that kid. I knew
and
that person.
and to be fair, if we're being honest, I mean that is Spider-Man. I mean,
This
if
is
you've
true.
been here, yeah, that's how it goes. It's like that meme of James Franco. It's like, oh, your first time. Because it's like they're setting it up, right? And I see it in some places because that's one thing that all Spider-Men, I guess, always have and shares, that their life just doesn't always go the rosy way. And bad things happen to people and people change. So I can't wait to see when those threads start to come apart.
What I like also with Peter and his friends in this is that typical narrative we see with Peter, especially as Peter Parker, and especially before the spider bite, is he's usually kind of this nerd and dork that's bullied to some extent,
Yeah,
right? We don't get that in this,
quite opposite actually.
right?
Is
I love his, and we see that more with his relationship with Lonnie.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I like that relationship because it's like at first it's like this guy took my girl. What do I have that he doesn't have?
Tall, dark, and handsome, and smart,
He ain't got none of that.
and he plays football.
What do
Like,
you mean? What you see in him and not me? And he's smart. He's smart. He's an
Al-
intellectual athlete.
also, you're 3 years younger than her. Just a reminder. Just she was your babysitter, but you know.
No, she was
But,
my friend that just made sure that I went to bed on time, and she was getting paid by my aunt and uncle. But she was
mm,
not my babysitter. I was
and
11,
even
11 and a half.
to say there, so far it feels like it's the first time I've thought this in my head, almost like a Ben 10 Peter, right?
Yes, 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 yes.
Like
I
that
see that.
kind of personality.
I see
And
that.
so far, I'm liking it. I want to see what I mean, this is semi skipping, but like to see what him crafted by Norman Osborn looks like. I actually, yeah, I feel like
You
there's a
know,
lot they could
let's
do.
let's jump straight into that.
Hmm.
Do you think because Norman Osborn, uh, I don't care what your intentions are. I don't care that you're looking for great students. I don't care that you're trying to replicate Tony Stark's arc reactor, but you can't use it because it's patented. Does does he make house calls?
I was thinking that, like, at least send someone, right?
Because then this is my question. Do you believe he knew about Peter being Spider-Man before he showed him that footage?
Yes.
I agree.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
he made
So
that visit
he's.
because he knows, or at least he kind of had an inkling.
Hmm.
That's why the initial meeting was made, and later on, that video footage is confirmation. But I don't know. I feel like Norman knew he was Spider-Man beforehand. You know,
I
maybe
agree.
it hasn't been announced, but you know, Peter saves his son earlier on.
Hmm.
Maybe Norman was following his son video feed and sees something. I don't know. Norman's a smart guy. You know, I think you probably agree with me again. I don't think we're getting a Norman Osborn that's like, no, but this one's good.
No, no. At least not to the colloquial or regular sense of the word, but I like him so far. It's kind of straight to the point. It felt like a setup. The speed at which he showed Peter the camera recording
Mhm,
of him, which first of all, duh. Um, and I'm happy they did that, right, and didn't just like excuse that point. It didn't. It didn't feel like a unless he has a really good poker face. It
mhm,
didn't feel like a, oh wow, you're Spider-Man. It felt like, haha, gotcha,
mhm.
right?
I'm confirming
Like
what I
like I
suspected.
like I knew it.
Yeah.
Got you red-handed. So I feel like he definitely has known because the the odds of him literally going to do that house call would be zero zero to 1 billion trillion. I mean, why? Like, literally, why?
Right. Like, I mean, you can say Tony Stark also did a house call, but that was also different. He
So,
needed to get Peter quickly to join his
mhm,
team to fight
yep,
Captain America.
exactly. Specifically, and because what he also what knew he was
Yep, he knew who he was.
he knew he
Yeah,
was
yeah,
Spider
it's
Man,
true.
right?
Yeah, he knew he was Spider-Man at that
So it's
point.
like
Yeah,
same thing.
you're right.
Tony Stark was not going there to. He would still say he would literally send a bot
Mhm.
even, but
Right. Or
he knew
happy.
he was Spider Man or happy if available, right? So I feel like same thing. It's like worst case, like you said, suspicions, and yeah, we'll
But here's
find
my
out.
question though. Even though it's pretty sure to say that and shit, even Nico's just like, "Oh, you dig up into his backyard, there's probably so many skeletons in there."
Hmm.
He's looking apprehensive like,
I
"You don't
like
get that
her
many trees out."
quips.
Yeah.
Her quips are and commentary are fun.
But my question is, did uh, 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 um, does he go into it with nefarious intent? Or is he just like, "Hmm, let me see what he can do, and I don't know, maybe I can monetize it," or is he coming from a business point of view to try and use this,
as,
or is he
as,
coming from a nefarious point of view right
uh,
now?
uh, as I say in Nigerian memes right now, na collabo, i.e., it's a collaboration.
Oh.
i.e., I think both things, right? I think Norman ha- he has a greedy twinge in his actions, which lead him into the nefarious. Unless they decided to change that about him, I don't think he came in with the intent to cause this child Peter harm, right?
Hmm,
But he's also going to do whatever he has to do to get whatever he may want.
hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see what the relationship is like specifically, right? And how him and Harry. is as a relationship, because that's
Wait.
also part of the trifecta
uh
of Spider-Man and Norman also involves Harry and what Harry and Peter are like. So
I'm
there's
curious.
so
I'm
much.
I'm curious if in this one Harry's
Mhm,
also an intellect, because usually the
mhm.
narrative is that Peter is closer to Norman because they share that intellect, where Harry
And
doesn't.
Harry doesn't like it,
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like that so far, at least. I mean, because I know it's been what 1 day, but he hasn't been around the office, so it doesn't feel like he's a presence. So I'm almost guessing that it's kind of the same vibe.
Mhm.
So we stay tuned.
All right, let's go to some of the other characters. You've spoken about Nico. Fun
Hmm.
fact: I won't go into deeper in terms of where it could go, but Nico is also a character
Hmm.
from the comics Runaways. And in the comics, her parents are villains, and the Runaway story is about them discovering that their parents are villains and them going against that. And I'm curious if that's going to kind of have the same storyline, because she also has that kind of magical powers and things like that.
Yeah.
She's wearing a kind
Right.
of a pendant that
Yeah.
reminds me of the staff that she carries in the comics. So maybe it's
Mm,
related. I don't know if she already at the point where she has abilities, or we're going to
yeah.
see that happen at some point. I
Uh,
think that's a curious place to look. But
yeah.
also for me, from these first 2 episodes, my most curious person is Lonnie. We have a moment where we follow him home,
That
right? And we
transition.
see I love that moment, right? You see the change in the environment, in the background.
I felt like an old Kanye video,
Right.
or Lupe Fiasco, or someone. It just maybe Kid Cudi. It was just a great moment, and like
Mhm,
there's a lot of weight in that. So
mhm.
good.
Well, as a black man, and I'm sure you can attest to this, is that it almost felt like they definitely have a black person in that writing stuff,
Yep.
because I felt
No, like
seen.
it's too real. It's too
It's
real.
too
Yeah,
real.
they didn't.
It
That's
was
not
way too real.
AI. Mm-mm.
Just like
Mm,
the old lady with the child, like, "No, don't sit next to him." The
yeah,
police following him, just, like, staring at
he's
his
just
face.
like.
I was like, "Damn."
Yeah.
You laugh, but that's very real. That's just
Yeah.
and just, this kind of realness of you kinda have to keep it to yourself, because if you complain and say something as a black man, you make it worse.
Like, sorry, what was that?
You make it a lot
Just
worse.
give me a reason. I dare
Right,
you.
right.
Like, no,
And
don't.
so I'm curious to see where his narrative goes. Again, that's I won't go into it now, but if you're interested, look up his name in the comics, and he's a very different character in the comics. And it goes down interesting paths. So I'm curious to see where his story goes. Let's talk about his science mates
Okay, fair.
at the internship. All right.
Yes.
We have a couple of characters
His
that
forced internship.
hey, at least he's getting paid.
Didn't sign any papers or waivers. Does he know how much? I
He
mean,
doesn't know how much he's getting paid though. That
I
I will
mean,
say that.
he didn't sign anything. He's breaking every HR rule and compliance, but it's okay.
And also, I'm not
Norman
quite
takes
sure.
care of his people.
Yeah, but no one says that. But he was also like, "As soon as you get here, come up to see me." And then no one believes him when he's like, "Yo, no one said I should come up to see him." And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Mhm. Sure, sure." But we meet Amadeus Cho, Jean
Yes.
Foucault, and
Mhm.
Dr. Carla Connors, as well as Asha from Wakanda. What do you think of these characters? Are these any characters that you know of before that you have expectations for it's going? Or are you kind of like, I don't know. I'm curious to see where.
I know Amadeus is Hulk. That's like the only one I know, and I think that's exciting. I feel like they can
Mhm.
do a lot with that. It's
And he's
reminding
one.
me.
I think in the comics, he's like in the top 10 smartest people in the world or something like
Mhm,
that. Yeah.
mhm. Um, and so to see him here is fun because watching Spider-Man as far back as we have as we're getting old, Spider-Man and Friends back in like what was that, like the 80s, 90s? I don't know. I'm like Spider-Man has always had a crew. So it's fun. Even the one with him more recently with Iron Fist, um
Good.
the flying guy and the other lion girl, whatever. Like they're
Tigers.
Tiger, thank you. In all variations, you see him with a nice squad, and I feel like they're building up a fun assortment of people here. And I'm actually excited to see how deep they go, and and when the symbiote takes over.
Hmm. It's funny that
Not
symbiote.
if, but when.
I think with that symbiote and the spider, it's a great way to kind of, because we've already known the storylines for the symbiote and Peter to have some kind of connection, right?
Always.
And in the comics, and the story in the original stories, it's because the symbiote has spent time, with Peter, and it knows
Hmm.
Peter, and it wants
It's
and it
watched
feels
him, and
rejected,
it's
right?
yeah.
It felt rejected. But I think there might be a different connection here with that spider that bit Spider-Man. I think that spider has a connection, right? There's a
Yeah.
through line from symbiote to spider to Peter. I think
Yeah,
there's something there.
it's a good guess, and it would tie in, right? Because
Mhm.
Strange was clearly coming from some place that had symbiote.
But even then, right, it's not a situation where it's not just a spider from another dimension. The spider still
Excellent movie.
has been enhanced through science
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
magic, whatever. Because we even see a similar narrative in the Spider-Verse films, right?
Hmm.
In the second film, it was established that that spider is from another dimension. It
Yeah.
wasn't supposed to bite him. It was supposed to bite
Correct.
someone else,
For Miles,
right?
Miles's story is similar.
So I'm curious to be like, all right, where did that spider come from? And usually in the comics, it was like some scientific research. Sometimes it's at Oscorp. That's how no one finds out. But this time it's
Hmm.
from a different place, and I'm curious if it's magic or science because
Yeah.
Strange was involved, right? And
Exactly. Specifically, Strange
mhm,
threw me for a loop.
yeah, and what I also find interesting, a lot of people have been calling that symbiote Venom. I'm like, but I don't know if it's Venom. It's just because you have to remember how symbiotes work. Because is that I don't know because they've been kind of retconning the history of symbiotes lately in the comics
Yeah,
and where they come from and things like that.
they have
I
really. Hmm.
I don't know if that's a symbiote's original look or by nature of being a symbiote, is it connected to another creature?
Like whatever creature it found, that's
Yeah,
just it.
like
Yeah.
that's the shape of the creature. I don't know,
Hmm.
which way it is. But again, curious to find out. Action sequence. Start talking about the action itself. Mentioned about how fluid it is and how cool it is. What are
Oh, the
some
bus
action
scene.
sequences in these 2 episodes that you enjoyed?
So let me say, so the bus scene when he saved that car from hitting the bus, I feel like the speed at which they animated that was just it was very it made me sit up a little bit, and I felt like they were doing a good like teaser of, and that's how I remember watching even like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, right? Like the first time you see him do the Spider-Man-y thing where you're like, oh. I feel like they nailed it there, and it just continued to escalate. Even the fight with the fire guy, who seems to be really good at fighting for some reason, but
Butane.
it's fair. Yeah, Butane, thank you. But anyways, Peter is more athletic than I would expect him to be at this point. Is
Though it
maybe
does
my
give us
only
a
thing.
3-month jump. We get a 3-month
Yeah,
time jump.
which I liked. Don't get me
Mhm.
wrong. I'm all here for. I'll skip some of the boring parts. Um, but anyways, yeah, to be fair, this guy is souped up, and it has been 3 months, so I'll let that one go. I feel like they're laying the groundwork for what could be some of the dare I say like best animated Spider-Man fights in the future, right? Like I said, I don't know. My brain just imagines fighting like I don't know, the Electros, the Green Goblins, the Vultures,
Mm,
with this sense and fluidity. So
mhm.
yeah, I don't know if that's overhyped
Like
praise,
motion
but.
and fighting,
Mhm.
like you're not on the ground, you're actually up in the air,
Mm,
swinging, flying
even
while
as
you're
little
fighting.
as the
Oh
brick
my g that was one of my
on
favorite
the thug.
moments.
It was because
Ooh.
they all went ooh and I went ooh too.
Same time.
And that's when I knew that okay, you know what, we might be onto something that might be special here. So yeah.
No, that brick moment is one of my favorites because it brings a lot of things that I like about this show. Because not only did it surprise me with the "ooh" and it knew my reaction, it
Yeah.
almost felt like I was one of the split panels because it
Yeah.
split the panels,
Yeah.
and I love how it uses that. It's not just the comic book look, right? It's how
Mhm.
comic
It's the
books
feel.
how you
So,
receive and perceive these
mhm.
narratives, right? And I think it does a great job of that. Like the moment where he gets bitten by the spider, it's
Mhm.
split in two, and you see the different angles. You can see multiple angles at the same time.
Yeah, and
Usually when
even
he
the
did the split,
banter or when she
right?
thought it was for her name. It's just like,
What happened? He didn't
that's
like my
like
name.
my name.
I
Like,
love that.
so
Again,
funny.
I think the action moments are done so well. There's even a sequence when in that same car sequence, when he tries to stop the car, he's waiting for the timing, and this is also a great way
Mhm.
to showcase he's still learning, right? We
Yeah.
get these moments where he's waiting, waiting, and he shoots it, and we almost get a webbing POV as
Yeah.
it shoots through
I
the car.
was doing the physics. 'Cause didn't it go through the windows of one of the cars? How
Yeah, yeah,
does the
yeah.
car not drive through the webbing? I was like, again, remember Andrew? Suspension of of disbelief, or what is it called? Like, forget it. But anyways, POV wise was fantastic. Very similar to Andrew Garfield's movie with the slow motion. I'll
Mhm,
have to.
mhm. And just again, I always love in the sequences when you're seeing him. Maybe you see this in the movies as well when he swings around the corner, running off the sides of the buildings, bouncing
Hmm.
off. I always thought those are cool. But then again, you get a moment where he misjudges the web swinging when the kid's
Yeah,
watching from the train and he
yeah,
slips like, oh, I'm okay.
yeah.
You know, or even moments where he's fighting butane and kicks too hard. He's like, oh shit,
He's
didn't
like,
know my own
oops,
strength.
oops, oops, oops. And because it's a running thing, right? I mean, if you know, you know, Spider-Man does pull his punches because
Oh,
he
yes.
he is ridiculously strong. Don't mess around, right? So
Like he will
it's
accidentally
nice
kill
to see
someone
that.
if
Yeah,
he doesn't take care. Yeah, and I always love that. And even moments again, I love the idea of I like when you see progression of things, right? Usually a lot of the movies don't show the progression of things like the web shooters.
yeah.
You know, like even having
With
the
this
big
little canister,
I love that he has this canister. Even a moment where he jumps through a window and one of the cords, the ropes get stuck on the window,
like it
you know,
hooks. Yeah,
and he kind of has to pull it up. Again, these are because it's animation, you have to draw these in. It's
yeah,
not just it didn't just happen on set and you're like, oh, that's cool, let's keep it.
yeah.
Right. It actually has to be
Exactly.
thought about. And I thought he does a very good job of kind of like showcasing his fluidity as Spider. We haven't quite seen him use his scientific genius as Spider-Man outside of
Mm,
making the webbing,
yeah,
right? He's
yeah,
not doing that kind of stuff, but we see athleticism, right? And I
yeah.
love kind of seeing that kind of difference in him throughout the action sequences. I thought they're brilliantly done,
Mhm.
and I think one of the benefits of doing CG animation is that you can kind of change camera angles, right?
Yeah.
Everything's not just flat.
Yeah, I
It's
can see
easier to
because
turn the corner.
it really portrays well. The angles are fantastic.
Hmm, hmm.
Dropping moments I like. A quick one at the beginning when he when he was opening his bag
Yeah, the fake out.
and they're like, haha,
Which I think is
gotcha.
funny. Aunt
Uh,
May was like, "I made you oatmeal, but you were late, so I packed it for you."
good for you.
What?
Like,
Who packs oatmeal?
like, excuse me.
Like, what? Which
Why? What did I do?
also, when
Not being
he misses
punished.
the train, he's like, "Ah, I just
Mhm,
missed it." I'm like,
mhm,
"No, you didn't.
mhm.
You had to run up those stairs to do like, I've lived in New York. You've spent time
Uh,
in New York.
yeah.
Like, if you're still on the outside of the bottom of the
It's,
stairs, you
yeah,
didn't
sir.
no."
So you did not just miss no train.
Like, and this is before he had powers, so it's not like he can
Hmm.
speed up those stairs, and you had to
Yeah.
swipe in your swipe card as well, and you got at the bottom, the train was leaving. You were not almost there.
Uh,
I was like, "Get out of here." Absolutely liar. Um, I like his relationship with Aunt May. I think they're building a good foundation. That's similar to
mhm.
the Tom Holland movies.
Yeah.
We don't have Uncle Ben. He dies before he was Spider-Man, which I
But
find
they mentioned
interesting.
his name
Mhm.
for like the first time in Marvel's career recently, right? Because Tom Holland, they never mentioned his name.
But I'm curious, do you think they're going to? Because again, in the comics, at least, Uncle Ben's death was very much tied to Peter's inexperience, and it was his hubris, right?
Yeah.
He thought he could have fun with it, and then this happens. So then he learns this harsh lesson. What do you think his lesson is going to be this one? Is it going to be like the
Do
movies where Aunt May dies?
Do you know what I thought? Yeah, that lady that he let go
Oh.
from the store with the money. I was like, I was, she like, Peter, don't
Ooh.
do it. Don't do it. It just doesn't end well. Oh my gosh, I've seen this before. Don't. So yeah, for I guess we're in wild theory time. That would be, if I wrote this, that would be the one where, but I also feel like the opposite is possible because she really did seem sorry, right? She was like, "I
Mhm.
promise I'm gonna change." She said something to the tune of, "She's really gonna try." She may even save him in the future. But
Yeah, yeah. I think that's where
yeah,
it's going.
yeah, that's probably what's happening there. But like I said, it would be funny if it was the opposite. What about you? Do you have any
Yeah, no, I
guesses in
mean,
that department?
I think that moment, which I think is a great moment, because again,
Mhm.
there's two moments that kind of showcase to me why Peter's a superhero, and I
PTSD,
love when
yeah.
stories show us why someone's a superhero
Mhm.
before, at least not related to the powers, right? One of my favorite moments is Captain America: The First Avenger when he jumps on the grenade.
Mhm.
Great moment of
Yeah.
heroism, and I think with Peter even trying to save Nika before he has powers,
Yeah.
right in the beginning. In fact, that attempt to save Nika puts him in the right position for the spider to drop on him. Right? If he
Yeah.
hadn't done that, he wouldn't have gotten bitten by the spider. So I always like seeing these
Mm.
moments of heroism, and I love him. You rarely see moments where the hero is just like, can you just let this person go? They
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
mean
Like,
so bad. This
come
person
on.
just needed food.
Yeah.
He understands the nuances. of life, that things aren't just black and white, right? They got
Something I don't think, but I don't think Batman does that. Like no offense.
well, in the in the Batman, as Catwoman says to him, like, "You sound like you grew up rich."
Right.
She said that to him. And with Peter, Peter knows what it's like to struggle,
Hmm.
right? Shit, look how excited he got for a DVD player he found in the trash.
Yeah. It was like, there's free pizza, free DVD player.
What?
Oh.
So I feel like I don't think that person goes to end up disappointing him, because I feel like that's the kind of story that
Yeah.
you only do that if you want to turn the hero into someone who's kind of like been like, you know what, I don't
Mm,
care. Being a hero
yeah.
sucks. There's no point in
Yeah.
it. And I don't think they're doing that with Peter,
Yeah.
because he's like, don't make me regret that. And I like when the store owner's like, I don't care, I have my money.
Yeah. Literally so realistic though. Like at that point, I literally could care less.
So like, I got my money, cool. Have some free pizza. Going back to that moment that you spoke of him catching the van. I don't know
Mhm.
if you recognized, that's the same moment that Tony shows to Peter, and like, oh, is this you? It's that footage in the
Mm.
movie. It's that same thing. It's like, oh, he caught a van. That's by himself.
Yeah.
Literally the same shot. We're seeing the full one of it now. Oh, fun fact.
Um.
It
Yeah.
opens with him reading a comic book called Amazing Adult Fantasy issue 14. And this is pre him having his powers. The reason this is significant is that this is 14. The very first issue of Spider-Man that we ever saw Spider-Man in real life was an Amazing Fantasy issue 15.
Dum dum dum.
So that was a nice little Easter egg, like, oh, he's not Spider-Man yet.
Mhm.
Wink,
Mhm.
wink.
Wink. It's basically saying you're watching the making of 15.
I like this fight with Butane. One
Mhm.
Butane, and I wonder where this is going. Butane's like, I was paid to burn down this building on 52nd Street. Like,
It's
this is
like
51st.
wrong street.
Do you think? I think Norman's involved.
Probably. I mean, Norman is Lex Luthor is usually behind any such thing. And if not, Kingpin too,
Oh, true,
because
true.
Kingpin and Norman don't necessarily ever have to be on the same side to both be doing equally
Mhm,
nefarious things.
mhm. I mean, these are real estate dealings.
Yeah.
Definitely one of them makes sense for that. But I
Mhm.
like during that fight, again, little moments of showcasing Peter as a hero. The first
Mhm.
thing he does is like, I ain't got time for you. I need to find civilians first.
Mhm.
Before fighting the guys, like, I need to find civilians. And then Butane's like, oh, what do you think? I'm crazy? I made sure the building was empty before I did all this. But then even going forward, when the fight continues into the pet store, moments of Peter trying to save the pets, from the fire
That
and from each
dog.
other.
Yeah.
I
That's
thought
funny.
I thought these are like really cool moments of
Yeah.
just he's thinking about these things, right? It's not just
Mhm.
self-preservation. Let me jump out of the way of the flame. Let me jump out
Yeah.
of the way of the flame, and let me grab
And
that caged
and
bird as well
yeah.
before it gets roasted. You know, and I
It's why he's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
mhm, mhm. And I think it does a good job of reminding us of the neighborhood. It does feel like a
Mhm.
neighborhood
Yeah.
in this. And I think even moments like following Lonnie home, I feel like we're getting moments of seeing each individual character's neighborhood. I think we're going to get
Mhm.
other characters, what's their home like, life like, right?
Yeah,
To really
I
kind
want
of
to
make
see
us familiar with their
Osborn.
neighborhoods.
I want to see, I'm curious to see the juxtaposition of Lonnie and Harry Osborn's home, right? Especially
Mhm,
since they're both black, and what it look like, as one is clearly infinite wealth in this world, and one quite the opposite. So that's going to be interesting.
mhm. I like go back to Nico. I like moments, subtle moments. I like when storylines tell us about a character without
Hmm.
telling us about a character,
Yeah.
right? Like we get a sense that Nico is either gay or bisexual because of interaction with Peter, being like, "If you don't go talk to that girl, someone else will." And Peter's
Yeah.
like, "Wait, you wouldn't? No, you wouldn't." And so it's like you're telling us that the character
Yeah.
is not straight without telling us that the
Yeah.
character is not straight. So that was
Basically,
nice.
it's like you don't have to scream everything
Right,
from the
right,
rooftop.
exactly, exactly.
Well,
It's moments where you kind of trust the audience, you know?
the intro song wasn't bad. I, you know,
I think I'll get used to it.
I bopped it a little
I
bit.
bobbed to it. I'll listen to the lyrics, you know?
I didn't love
Urban
every song in
Urban
the world at
Acrobat.
first. Yeah, right. So,
I did like that
so
they kind of remixed the original
the
Spider-Man theme,
original. So,
right? So it's not a wholly new song, okay? But
n-
I don't
no,
know yet if it's gonna replace Spectacular, Spectacular
Spider
Spider-Man,
Man. Nothing
Spectacular.
can.
But I will say, I if I remember correctly, I don't know if I was in love with Spectacular Spider-Man theme song when I first
So
heard it.
that's what I just said. I know myself. There are a lot of times where I've been like, "Oh, what is this song?" And then 3 listens later, I'm there writing the lyrics on my hand. So
But even
mm,
things like the art style, again, I've spoken of podcasts how Spectacular Spider-Man is probably like one of our favorite, if not
uh,
favorite Spider-Man
yeah, like that's just like that art style
anything.
is just one of my
I
favorites.
I didn't like the art style especially of
Yeah.
like character designs of Peter initially.
So
I was like, oh, that looks weird, different. I don't like that. They're kind of like weird angular faces
yeah.
in that. But now I love it.
It's funny. It happens to me. Like even with Arcane, I read Arcane season 1. I
Yeah.
started and I was like, oh, this is not for me. And now it's literally my top 7. Dragon Prince as well. So honestly, sometimes you're right. We need to just it's like dropping dropping your preconceived notions about how the world should be, and just sit down for a moment and let the fantasy take you, and you'll be fine. But it's actually good. Obviously, it's not nitpicks are allowed. I don't think anybody needs to say everything is perfect, but minor, you know, lack of detail area here and there apart. I thought it looked really good. I really think it has high potential, honestly.
I agree. I agree. And I think
For-
for me, I've realized, as I gone old and maturing in my film and TV watching content, I've realized that we used to all get excited by the visual stylings, but how many times have you seen something that's amazing visual but boring as hell? You know,
yeah,
and it
a few, and it's still not
it really
doesn't
tells you
scratch
that
the itch.
it really tells you at the end of the day, it's about good storytelling.
yeah,
Like good storytelling is good storytelling, even if it's just handed line art drawing,
even if it's
right?
written on napkins, right?
Right. It's and good storytelling is enjoyable, and you always
yeah,
be into a good story. So I think
yeah,
then you kind of slowly kind of because you get used to 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 animation or visual styles that you're not used
yeah.
to, but you don't get used to a bad story.
No,
A bad story is just that bad
they're
story,
just always bad, and they always taste bad, and they always leave a bad taste in your mouth.
right? Right. What's up with the teacher at the internship? He just hates everybody.
The guy, he's just grumpy, grumpy McGrump,
Do you think he becomes
Scrooge.
anyone? I haven't looked into his name.
The thing I feel Peter Parker is one of those guys that I feel like everybody he gets close to
Right, becomes a
is
villain.
is bound
Because
to
it
try
gives
to
me
kill him.
without the name, if you gave me a different name, I'd be like, yeah, he's Otto Octavius.
It could even he has the face for a vulture. If
True,
we're just I'm
true.
not saying that they're doing vulture by face. It doesn't make sense, but you're right. He could very easily. I could see him being a variation of Otto, and that's one thing I'm enjoying about not watching a different variation of our standard. What six is it 616? I
Yeah.
don't know. Peter, right? This is we all clearly know this is not Kansas, Dorothy. So they are free to do whatever because Spider-Man has so many villains, man. Like it's just, it could be Shocker
I mean,
for, for
outside of
for all we
Batman,
know.
he's got the best rogues
It's
gallery, him and Batman.
and just like an assortment of all kinds. He really puts in a shift.
Mhm. Well, what do you nerdies think of the first 2 episodes of this show? What were your expectations going in, and how do you feel coming out of it? Find us on social media at The Nerdy Bunch. You can also send us recommendations at our email, thenerdybunchpod@gmail.com. And slight mistake, for the past few weeks, I've been saying the Nerdy Bunch podcast at gmail.com. That is not our email address. Sorry. It's the Nerdy Bunch pod at gmail.com.
No wonder. Just- I knew it. I knew there was something. Sorry. Everybody who's emailed in the past few weeks, please just send in a new one
Right.
or reach out on Instagram.
Oh, I like when Peter, clearly someone that doesn't know sports, was just like, "Oh, how many home runs did he slam dunk?"
It's just like, it should be so obvious.
But again, I like that I can make fun of him like that in terms of he's such a dork, but it's not through making fun of him,
Yeah,
teasing him, bullying
they're
him.
not ridiculing him. He gets to
No,
even cheer he or Lonnie cheers him on, right, with
right?
the trophy, right?
Right. Yeah, he's not the
Which
loner
is
kid that's
it's
just like
interesting.
people bullying him, blah blah.
Yeah.
And even in the MCU movies, he wasn't exactly. a loner, but you still had characters like Flash
Yeah.
coming at him, right?
It
Some
was
kind of
still like
in-school
prickly,
antagonist,
some thorns in his side. Whereas
right?
here,
He
at
doesn't
least
have
so
that here.
far, yeah,
Though,
there's none of that.
though it could, where you can have someone who was a friend become a foe because they believe that,
100%.
like we see in this episode before we close out. Yeah, which I thought was interesting because Nico's just like, because he tells Nico, I have this internship, it's really important. Nico's like,
Yeah.
okay, but you're gonna stay and watch the game, right? It's like,
I don't know why I just said they're kids at that moment because I was like, he
just
just
now.
said he literally just said just whatever.
He's like, no, but you're gonna go. And he's like, you're gonna come to the after party, right? Right?
Hmm.
He should have said that. I can't, or I might not be able to.
That was my thing. He's walking into Norman's office and be like, "So sorry, boss is about to probably fire me." Right? If he sent that, she would understand. And I feel like it's still, but it's those little things. Yeah, they're starting to show us the breadcrumbs because it happens. Let's be honest. Either you or loved one has been there. I can tell you for a fact, and
Mhm,
things slip by, especially when you're kids. So again, part of Spider-Man's story and his web of life is just the fact that he he honestly can't have it all, right? It's impossible to be both sides and keep all friendships and be there for everyone, and it's going to just create different things. So yeah, I'm
mhm,
curious to see who ends up as foe and friend by the end of this, for real.
mhm. I'm excited to see where it's going, and I'm also excited to see the evolution of this costume we've seen in trailers, right?
Hmm.
The evolution of the costumes and things like
Quite
that.
a few
I always
different
love seeing all
ones.
that stuff.
Same.
Hopefully, it's rooted in some kind of scientific explanation, not just like,
Yeah.
oh, and he has it. It should.
Not
I
Easter
want to have
egg.
a purpose.
Yeah.
Like we have this new suit. Like even this episode, he's like, well, my next suit has to be fireproof.
Yeah.
Just moment. I'll take that. If that's it doesn't
Exactly.
have to be a complicated reason.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, David.
My name is English Dave, and this has been a Nerdy Bunch special. This has been a Nerdy Bunch presentation of Something to Marvel About, where we spoke about Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Season 1, Episodes 1 and 2. And as always, Andrew,
Keep it nerdy.
peace.